Everybody, welcome to Dead Reckoning TV. I'm Jay Friesen. Alongside me is Dr. Brian Matson, and we're taking a look at some theology behind how culture kind of intersects with the Christian faith and what that kind of looks like, and delving a little bit deeper into that. If you like what we're doing, we're excited to have this coming out in a DVD series later this summer with replete with a study guide. Lots of extra resources in there, some discussion questions, and some more materials for you to research. So if you're a skeptic or you're already a Christian, doesn't matter. It's good material for both of you guys, or gals for that matter. Anyway, we're looking at the future, kind of a term we call eschatology. And Brian, one of the, I can hear it now. Well, look, if God's coming back to resurrect and restore, then why do we still have shootings and people dying and blah, 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 blah. Hell, we're going to hell in a handbasket, man.
Yeah, I could talk a big game about Jesus making all things new, Jesus restoring us, Christians, Jesus' own people sure seem to be slogging it out in the here and now. Really, it's very discouraging. We have an ongoing battle with sin in our own hearts. Sometimes we have a difficulty overcoming certain besetting sins. We not only that, we just suffer in many ways. We are living in a world of suffering. We talked about that in our month. It's foo but not bar. Sometimes the not bar part seems very hard to believe.
Seems very bar.
We do not see Jesus restoring and renewing all things. Another way of putting that is, we do not see by sight what we believe by faith. This can be a very discouraging world to live in. You've experienced suffering. We've talked on the podcast the last couple of weeks. There's just a lot of heartache and anguish, and there's death, premature death. We don't see this glorious reign of Jesus in a way that we believe it to be true. The Bible has such extravagant promises for God's people that we're going to be sanctified, made holy, that we're going to be glorified, incorruptible bodies, and yet, outwardly we are wasting away, Paul says, but inwardly we're being renewed day by day. So we're not seeing that vision of the end right now in front of us in many ways. And I think that causes a lot of discouragement. And this might be, maybe this episode is more for our Christian audience, what do you do when you're just in the doldrums and you're struggling with, it could be a sin, it could be, you start to wonder, does God really love me? Where is God? Am I really a Christian? I think every Christian asks that question periodically. Man, am I just going through the motions here? Or because I'm not really feeling it. So we can get very discouraged, and sometimes these extravagant promises seem exactly that. They're just extravagant. They just don't seem real to us. But the maxim that I want to share with people that I think is good to remember is this. Just because you're not the finished product, just because you're on an assembly line, doesn't mean you're not the genuine article. You can still be the genuine article and yet a finished product. If you go to New York City and you're walking along the sidewalk, you are going to find a stand with some guy who wants to sell you a $50 Rolex. Oh, it's authentic, he assures you, right? Your $50 Rolex watch, man. I once was a security guard in a very high-end jewelry store in Newtown, Pennsylvania, which I think is probably one of the most affluent areas in the country. In fact, I once watched a woman impulse buy a $75,000 Cartier watch, which is absolutely boggled my mind. But some guy came in to get his Rolex repaired, and they had to tell him the sad news that his Rolex was not the genuine article and that they couldn't fix it. He looked quite distressed at getting ripped off. We can think that we're not the genuine article, that God really doesn't love us, we don't really belong to Christ. But we tend to think that because we look at ourselves and we see what unfinished products we are. But just because you're an unfinished product doesn't mean that you're not the genuine article. I like to think of it this way. I think this is a helpful illustration. In World War II, the Pacific, the battles in the Pacific theater were very interesting because Japan's strategy was to take all of these islands in the South China Sea and inhabit them. And MacArthur had decided that our strategy was going to go island hopping, and we were going to take them back one by one. So Iwo Jima, Tarawa, all of these islands, we would hit the beachhead with our Marines, and we would have a furious 3-day battle to take, or longer, weeks in some cases, Guadalcanal, to take this island. And what would happen is, after all of this fighting, we would finally get to the point where we would take over their headquarters, and we would pull the Japanese flag down, and we would run up the American flag. And it was at that moment, you get the iconic image at Iwo Jima, right, of the men putting up the American flag. It's at that moment that the battle is declared over. This island is now under the sovereign control of another. The flag has been taken down, and there's a new authority. There's a new sheriff in town. There's a new authority, a new lord, a new master. This island has been taken. Funny thing, though, when that flag runs up, the fighting doesn't stop. The battle's over. It's over. But the fighting doesn't stop. It went on in many cases for weeks and weeks and weeks because there were still pockets of resistance all over the island where the Japanese soldiers were holing up, and they were going to fight to the bitter end. And these pockets of resistance went on for weeks. There were many more casualties. And yet the battle had been declared over. The newspapers back in the States would say, Iwo Jima taken, as though it's over. Well, it is over. But it's not over. There's still pockets of resistance. There's ongoing battle. It's exactly that way for us living in the here and now. For Christians who belong to Christ, the battle's over. There's a new authority in our hearts. We've been freed from sin and death, and we've been given the spirit of resurrection life. We've been united with Christ. The battle is over. There is a new Lord. There's a new authority. And yet, there are still pockets of resistance within us. There are things that remain to be conquered. There's that not yet. We're still awaiting the end. And it's that way with suffering as well in many ways. Grief, bereavement, loss, death, these things. Jesus has not fully made all things new. That awaits the end. So don't get discouraged. Just because you're mired down in the mud doesn't mean you see the big picture. Just because you think you're unfinished doesn't mean that you're not the genuine article.
That's a good word. It makes a lot of sense. The whole World War II illustration makes a lot of sense. You could be down in the battle, right in a foxhole, hammering it out with the enemy, and yet the flags run up. You guys have won, but there's still this ongoing battle, and it's part of that process in the Christian faith we call sanctification. Right. We're ongoing to become better and better people. That's just kind of what we do. Well, if you like this, we're going to have a full DVD series at later this summer with all of the commentaries on the DVD series with a study guide, more resources, discussion questions if you want to host them in a group, and different things you can look at there. And coming next fall, this is the last month of the Dead Reckoning TV, as you see it here.
Season 1.
Coming next fall, we're going to have a 1-hour TV series on the web, and this commentary is going to be a segment of that full series. If you'd like to hear what we're doing on the series right now, you can listen to our audio-only podcast at deadreckoning.tv. Click on the audio tab. Radio tab. Thank you. And download it to iTunes or your RSS reader, your computer, whatever you want to listen to. Please follow us on Facebook. Click the like button. It's huge. And share us with your friends. Please, we really like to hear from you guys. And we've had a lot of good feedback. We've had some not good feedback, some angry feedback.
Goes with the territory.
But we've had a lot of good feedback. You can email us at drtv@redfutonfilms.com. We got a brand new website coming this summer. It's going to be a lot of cool stuff this fall, and we're excited to have you on board with us. With that, I'm Jay Friesen.
Brian Matson.
And this is Dead Reckoning TV.